How do you suggest we keep people motivated?
Believe it or not, my goal isn't really to motivate anyone other than myself. There's an old saying, and I think John Wesley gets credit for it. It says, light yourself on fire with passion and the world will come to watch you burn. My goal really isn't to motivate others. It's to motivate the one person that I know I have a shot at motivating, which is me. And from there, the right people will come around you, or people that are like-minded, moving the same direction as you. So I don't spend a lot of time trying to motivate others. And the reason is if you have to motivate people to do the right thing, that's like spinning up tops, which is a very old school reference, I guess. I don't know if many other people know what a top is, but it was an old toy that you would spin. If you get too many of those going at one time, you have to come back to the first one and keep it spinning up. You'll eventually be limited to how many people you can motivate at any point in time. And so long-term motivation anyway, I need that to be an internal thing. I want somebody to be internally motivated. If they're not, they're probably not my guy, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with them. There are times when people are down or they're just going through a rough time where they just need some love. And in that way, maybe we're motivating them, but it's coming from a place of encouragement and support, not trying to motivate somebody to do something that they don't want to do.
What was the most important thing you've learned so far in your journey?
My business rises and falls on my decisions, no one else's. That was the most empowering thing that I learned. And I learned it in the first 18 months, but it was incredibly empowering to recognize that. It's easy when you run a team to think it's on them, but it's not. Ultimately, it's on you because it's who you hire. It's who you choose to bring on your team. It's what you choose to tolerate. Ultimately, your business will fail or succeed based on your decisions. Now, it takes a team. So great leaders will always give credit to the team when you're doing well, but you take ownership if you're not doing well. Right? That's on you. It's how you're showing up to the game. And that was a big one for me.
How many teams did you lose? And if you even did lose a team, what was your mentality to persevere through adversity?
Great question. I lost lots of teams. I've probably lost more teams than most people have built. That's part of the process. And it's just, you're going to lose people if you want to say that. My frame is this. People come into my life for a season, a reason, and for life. I don't always know which one it is. My goal is just to add value while they're here. And the persevering part, it's like, what other fucking choice do I have? I mean, people ask me well, how'd you get through the hard times? What other fucking choice did I have? I don't understand that when people, and that's a common question. What kept you going? What other fucking choice did I have? I knew what I wanted. In my dark winter, I've been open for 18 months. We got off to a quick start, made $1 million my first year. My second year, I call the dark winter. I went through a really tough time in my business and life personally. I went from making $50,000 a month down to negative $180 in my business bank account. I took myself off my own payroll for 6 months, and I had to entirely rebuild my team. So for an employee, they would say, so you worked for free? I guess you could look at it that way. It's I worked for what I wanted. It took me about 3 months to get everything. It was 9 months total, but it took me about 3 months to get back into the black. And we never did under $1 million since. And now we're $15 million, I think, this year we'll do. Imagine if I would have said no, if I would have given up then. What if I would have said, none of you guys would exist, at least not here, right? Wouldn't be in this business. When you know what you're about and you're chasing purpose, not money, it's a different game.
What were the biggest sacrifices you had to make in order to get to the position you're currently at?
It's always an interesting one. I don't look at my life that way, so this is hard to answer, but I'll try to calibrate it to what I think you're asking. When you're seeking success, success is saying no to a lot of things that don't align with what you want most. And where we get stuck is very often we say yes to things we want now at the cost of the things we want most. Right? In our 20s, this is prevalent because it's easy to get distracted by all the things in the world that we think we want, right? Possessions, experiences, people, girlfriends, boyfriends, and we think all of these things are so important. Here's an easy way to backtest. There's a very good chance that what you think is important in your life right now, probably 80% of it isn't. Take 10 years off your age and ask yourself, what did I think I was important then? And if you could honestly say that most of those things you thought were important then are still important to you now, maybe you're recalibrated to reality. But most of us are not. Right? So if you're 25, think about the things you thought were so important when you were 15. And you probably chuckle if you're growing and laughing and yeah, none of those things are that important. There's a really good chance you're still doing a lot of that. And in our 20s, it's usually relationships that don't serve us, too much partying, or just wasted time doing shit that doesn't matter. Too much time doom scrolling, too much time on Netflix, too much time just doing shit that isn't bearing fruit in your life. And so much of success, defined by your own terms, by the way, but if you're trying to be more than what you are now, it means you're going to have to get really good at saying no to a lot of shit. Highest performers I know are really good at saying no. And they say no most of the time. They're very locked on to what it is they're about, and they say no to everything else. In fact, part of the way I could tell where somebody is in their journey is how quickly they say no to things. If it takes you a while to say no to things, it's likely because you aren't clear about what direction you're going. For me, money is simply a scorecard that represents the value I bring. So when they negotiate with me, anybody who leads with money before value, you're already losing, especially if you're easily replaceable. And no offense, most people are easily replaceable because very few people actually have really high value skill sets, especially in this day and age. We're not teaching high value skill sets. And we live in a time where it's never been easier to build wealth, but it's never been harder to live off a paycheck. And yet, what are you taught in school? To live off a paycheck. And it's never been harder. In the 70s, 60s, you legit could have a minimum wage job and probably be able to afford a house, a car, and a couple of kids. That's not happening today. There's no fucking way. And we can boo-hoo about it. We can say it's not fair, fuck the government, or you can adapt, learn real world skill sets, and you're gonna thrive because it's never been easier to build wealth. There's 16-year-old kids making 6 digits a month because they get it. High value skill sets. Turns out 6 of the 10 most sought after skill sets we teach. And most of them are all soft skills. Can you lead? Can you communicate? Can you sell? Think about Gen Z, millennials. Most of them are balls at communicating. Turns out it's a very sought after skill set. And the more people that are bad at it, the less competition it is, the more valuable it becomes.
Do you think later throughout time, you feel that's going to be a little harder to get into because of the fact that we have another generation of introverts?
No. If you're saying, will it be challenging for people who are ill-prepared? Yes, but that's why we train and develop people. I'm an introvert. I'm actually inherently shy. I'm very quiet. If you hang out with me enough, you'll realize this motherfucker doesn't talk nearly as much as I think he would. Because if you only see me at the front of the room, you think I'm a chatty Cathy and I'm always talking. I don't like to talk. I'm generally very quiet and I'm very introverted. My favorite condition would be drinking some tea, playing some chess, reading a book, and being by myself most of the day. I'm not an introverted dude or an extroverted dude. If we hide behind our personality, we're just full of shit. So my personality. No, you're choosing to be something. That's fine, but don't blame your personality. That's a choice.
What do you think are the most important things to be looking at as part of a launch crew?
Yeah, so if I'm picking the launch crew, one of the things we're walking through is don't pick people based on what they could be, pick them based on what they are. The worst thing we can do is to be optimistic about a launch crew. You want to be real about a launch crew. You make decisions based on the real numbers. So that means if you're hoping somebody is magically going to get better because they're on a launch crew, they're probably not. Within 8 weeks, I generally know who I'm dealing with. 8 weeks of starting the business, you're pretty crystallized. There are exceptions to that, but people are people. It's pretty hard to hide who you are in a performance environment. It's one of the many reasons why I love being in a performance environment. Who you are is going to show up. Do you work hard? Can you take adversity? Can you take a no? Do you make excuses? Do you have integrity? Within 8 weeks, I'll usually know that. So first thing about a launch crew, make sure you're real about who they are, not optimistic. Now that's normally what I would tell an owner who's putting a launch crew together. If I'm talking to a rep who's going to be on a launch crew, I would say you were picked to do exactly what you're doing. Don't overthink it, just continue to execute, be stable, be consistent. The name of the game of building wealth is consistency, which is why most people fuck it up. Consistency is a rare trait to find in people. Well, to be fair, everyone is consistent, but I mean consistently high performing.